Welcome back to Meet Advisors. My name is Kit Lancaster, accredited wealth management advisor with GCG Financial, and I'm here in Chicago Military Veterans Series with my good friend George Hamilton with Sears Corporation. George, I'm really glad you could join us here today. I really appreciate your time. Tell our viewers what you do, how you engage the veteran community with veteran recruiting at Sears.
Okay, so Sears Holdings, large retail organization, we run what we call a veteran hiring initiative. Now the way that works is versus a lot of companies which will have just specific veteran recruiters, it's myself and my partner, and we run a program. So that program focuses on sourcing more than anything else. So we look at how can we pipeline talent into our organization and then utilize the recruiters we already have by educating them on the kind of talent that veterans bring to the table. A lot of that includes partnerships with organizations like Alliance and Rally Point and a lot of local Chicagoland veterans organizations. So we recruit across 1,800 full-line stores as well as our corporate headquarters and across all job functions.
George, I'm really glad you brought up a lot of those different touch points, in particular Rally Point, which I know some veterans have heard of, some have not. There's a great article you posted on there on the holistic transition for guys getting ready to transition, or maybe they're going through it right now, on setting expectations, because it was just 14 months ago that you yourself were transitioning out.
Yep.
You know, like me, former field artillery guy, multiple deployments. Tell us a little bit about that article, the holistic transition, and walk us through that, because I think there's a lot of value there for our viewers that they can read after this interview, but if you could hit home with it today here.
So I learned an awful lot of lessons in my transition, and when I wrote that article, what I tried to look at was when I left the service, I got really focused on things that veterans tend to get really focused on. What the paycheck, and that's always the first thing. And then a lot of guys get really kind of pigeonholed on location, and they don't tend to worry too much about the job itself. So what I was trying to get across was, as you leave the service, start sooner than I did. I only really started maybe 120 days out from my ATS date. And in hindsight, that was a poor decision. You really need to start 6 to 9 months, if at all possible. And then I tell people to look at it kind of like a pyramid. Start out with, I want to live in this particular area, doing this for this organization for this amount of money. And if you kind of do that, you'll find yourself narrowing the field down, because it is extremely overwhelming when you start. And a lot of guys have no idea what it is they want to do, myself included. I didn't picture myself in talent acquisition 2 years ago. That's not something I thought. But as I did my homework and worked my network, it turned out to be a field that I was very interested in, and I'm not too bad at either, so that's a bonus. But there's a lot of little things that veterans don't think about. So as you're transitioning, think very hard about not only what you want to do, but who you want to work for. Don't pigeonhole yourself into a single city. If you are from Atlanta, Georgia, and you've just got to get back there, great. I'm from Colorado. I would eventually love to go back to Colorado. But you have to let yourself go to where the opportunities are. For me, that was Chicago. Another consideration that you need to take into account is the culture of the company. My personal belief is that's probably the most important out of everything you look at. Most military veterans are values-based people. They are. So if you go to an organization that isn't particularly values-based, then you're going to be an odd fit, and honestly, it's not going to work out well. So there's just so many things to consider. So culture, location, job function, pay. And what I try to encourage veterans is pay is only one piece of a very large equation, and it's also relative, because if you leave the service and you're good at what you do when you leave, the pay is going to come. That's going to happen. But if you leave the service and you take a well-paying job in a field you don't like, well, 18 months later you're just starting over, is all you're doing again, and you're constantly going to get yourself stuck in that cycle. So in order of precedence for me, job function is the most important. What is it you want to do? What company do you want to work for? And the cultural considerations that come into play with that. And then location and paycheck kind of follow that. I tried to explain it to some guys at the Rally Point conference kind of the same way you would look at a PCS move in the military. It's not permanent. Okay, it's a stop. But nobody wants to be stationed in Fort Polk, Louisiana as an OC, okay? But it opens up a lot of doors further on in your career. So maybe you don't want to live in Chicago, Illinois, but the job market here is fantastic. Well, come here for 2 or 3 years, get yourself a decent job, and then move on to what you want. So I think a lot of veterans make the mistake of thinking wherever they go right after the military is a permanent solution, and it's not. It's really no different than a series of military career progressions and moves.
I think that's a great way to look about it, and I've heard other recruiters talk about, it's every 2 to 4 years, it's very common you may be in a different job opportunity at a different company. You peg out or you grow to a certain point, and they may or may not be able to accommodate your growth. So thinking of it as a PCS move, I think is a great mindset for people that are looking to get out, and a great comparison to what you're going to see in the civilian world, because that's what most people do. 2, 4, maybe 7 years, and then they're off to another company in a similar, different capacity for additional opportunity.
And understanding that this is not the 1970s. Okay, people don't go to work at the same company by and large for 30 years. It doesn't happen. You're absolutely right. The average stint for most people in most organizations is 2 to 3 years. And then they move on to something else. And the job market understands that, recruiters understand that, and that's not held against you on resumes. What is held against you is if you're hopping jobs every 6 months. But that's
right.
But if you're showing some stability, 18 to 36 months within a job, that's plenty. That's fine. The U.S. military doesn't keep you in assignments much longer than that, because that's really the only amount of time you need to kind of grow and master your craft at that position.
Circling back around to cultural fit. You touched on that. I actually was just talking with a friend of mine yesterday, military veteran, moved out to Denver. Okay. And that was one thing that said, hey, once you meet a lot of people, make sure you're a good cultural fit. Sears has an event coming up that could help veterans in transition, also give them a taste of different aspects of a cultural fit. Yep. Could you highlight and talk about that in greater detail?
So we're going to be hosting November 7th, which is a Friday, from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. It's called Invite a Veteran to Work Day. And we launched this last year as an inaugural event. The idea behind it being that transitioning veterans need a certain set of skills that are going to help them move into the job market. And a lot of the ACAP, TAPS programs touch on them, but they don't teach them. So where it's one thing to go get resume and interviewing tips from a nonprofit organization, it's quite another to come in and have a talent acquisition professional or recruiter sit down and tell you what you should put on a resume, what you shouldn't, what you should and should not say in an interview, or here's how to dress yourself, and kind of set you up with those particular sets of instructions. To include, we're going to have LinkedIn come out. They're going to teach workshops and do one-on-one in a computer lab to help you improve your LinkedIn profile on the spot. We'll have a personal shopper from Sears out in Woodfield come out and give you a 30-minute class on how to dress yourself professionally. And that's certainly not intended to talk down to anyone, but it's meant to give you the finer points as you leave the service of kind of developing your own style and what that looks like and what professional attire really looks like. There's some added bonuses to it. We will have professional headshots done free of charge for all veterans who attend for their LinkedIn profiles. And then we'll send out StrengthsFinder 2.0 codes to everyone who attended the event. And that's for, if you don't know what StrengthsFinder is, please go look at it. It's a fantastic tool for writing a resume and kind of branding yourself as a commodity. So it's about an 8-hour event. We're going to have a lot of big veteran players from the Chicagoland area there. We'll even feed you for free. And you'll walk away with several $100s worth of instruction and product that's going to help you on your career path. And then the biggest change from last year's inaugural event to this event is when you register online, you're going to be given the opportunity to apply for a position within 5 major job functions in Sears. So loss prevention, human resources, Sears Automotive, Sears Logistics Services, and a couple others. And if you apply for a position, you're one of the first 50 that do apply for a position and register to attend the event. You'll get an in-person screening interview at the event. So you'll get instant feedback versus, waiting for weeks. If you're not one of the first 50, you'll be guaranteed a phone screen by one of our recruiters within 30 days.
Outstanding. And George, is there a website that they can go to or an email address that they should email, request, or look for additional information at?
So if you're looking for additional information, and unfortunately I don't remember the website off the top of my head, but you can go to searsholdings.com/military. There will be a link on there. That's our military careers page. That will take you straight to the registration site. It's a one-click registration. You're using a social profile. And if that doesn't work for you, then my email is george.hamilton@searshc.com. Feel free to email me, and with your questions, I'll get you pushed in the right direction.
George, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you very much for your expertise. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kit Lancaster, GCG Financial. As always, a big thank you to our friends here at Mabley and River North. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.